Hello and welcome to this week's episode of 5 Minutes of Management. I'm Frank Kalman along with Rick Bell. Rick, I don't want to brag, but I think this week's episode might be our best yet. We've got some good news on layoffs, or should I say a lack thereof, as well as the ongoing diversity saga in Silicon Valley. And while some of you contend you're always in the dark, you literally will be in a couple of weeks.
That's right, Frank. I'm going to Oregon in a couple of weeks for the solar eclipse. So yeah, I'll be in the dark for at least a good 2 minutes or so.
Well, let's start with some good news before we get to that. Not only did the U.S. Labor Department report another strong month of hiring in July, but it also reported that Americans are less likely to be laid off than at any point in the last 50 years. That's right, according to the Wall Street Journal, for every 10,000 people in the workforce, 66 claimed new unemployment benefits in July. That is trending at the lowest point on record going back to 1967. The previous low point, 83 per 10,000, was touched in April 2000, which was the height of the first tech boom. What's more, separate Labor Department data reported by the Journal shows that layoffs and other discharges as a share of total employment this year is at the lowest level on record going back to 2000. Rick, awesome news, right?
Holy guacamole, Frank.
Holy
that
guacamole.
is pretty darn cool. Although we should put it in perspective that the final 6 months of the Obama administration, there was actually better job growth than the first 6 months of the Trump administration. So yeah, good news, but you also have to consider that since 2013, there's been steady job growth really since the end of the recession. All right, Frank, let's talk again about an issue that just doesn't seem to go away: diversity in the tech industry. A Google employee wrote a 10-page manifesto on women in tech. In essence, he says women are underrepresented in the tech industry, not because of bias, but because women are not biologically fit for the job. Not surprisingly, Google's CEO responded by saying the manifesto crossed the line by advancing harmful gender stereotypes in the workplace. You know, Frank, women are physically and emotionally equipped to do pretty much any job in any environment, tech included. But that also raises the issue of free speech in the workplace for me. The First Amendment does not guarantee you the right of free speech in your workplace. There are plenty of nuances, but basically it's a company's right to discipline their employees for their speech. Frank, any manifestos swirling around in your head? Any thoughts on Google's latest brouhaha?
No manifestos. I won't argue with Google firing him. You're right. First Amendment rights do not protect speech in the workplace. I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian in saying that I think Google might have missed out on an opportunity to rein in this conversation and expand on it by not only maybe not firing the employee, but having a different kind of conversation at work. If you read the memo in full, it was not an incendiary memo. It was written in a very polite, measured tone. He expresses a frustration that there is a progressive bias in Silicon Valley and Google, and he expresses an openness to want to improve diversity both at the firm and in Silicon Valley in general. He just has a little bit of a different point of view in how to go about doing that. Now, of course, I disagree with his assertion about the biological differences. I don't think that's true. I think it's more social and cultural differences, but nevertheless, I wonder if Google could have taken advantage of this opportunity differently and had a different kind of conversation around it.
Yeah, you know, and apparently this stemmed from diversity training, from what he says. And so it gives you an opportunity to reassess just what our diversity training is saying. We've sat through several rounds of diversity training. And yeah, I mean, there are opportunities to present different viewpoints. And I think that's a key thing here is there are different viewpoints on gender diversity.
Well, that wraps it up for this week's episode of 5 Minutes of Management. For Rick Bell, I'm Frank Kalman. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and Twitter at @Workforce News. And of course, you could follow all of Workforce coverage at workforce.com. We'll see you next week.